Do you have expertise you want to share with the world, but you don't know how to create a course? Do you want to learn the steps to take to produce your content and make it available online? Tune in to today's interview to learn tips to help you achieve your goal.
Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining me today. If you missed my last episode and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my social media pages as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when my podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. Now let's learn a little bit about my guest today. Nancy Giere is a course creation expert. She works with businesses of all sizes, from solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies, turn their expertise into high-profit courses. She creates engaging, fun, and interactive programs that get results. So, Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here today.
Well, I have some questions for you that I definitely am looking forward to having this conversation on this topic. I think a lot of people will be interested in course creation. But before I get into the questions I have, I would love for you to share just a little bit more about yourself and how did you become the course creation expert?
Well, it goes back very early in my career when I was working for an insurance subsidiary of a bank, and we needed to train the people in the bank about insurance products. And my boss said, "Hey, you're a good communicator. Can you do this for me?" It's like, okay. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just did it. And, it was okay. And then a couple of jobs later, because I kind of liked doing training, I worked for a company that created mostly software training, and it was all delivered on CD. So now everybody has an idea of just how old I am. And we had to follow a process so that, we had like 40, 50 people, and we're all moving to create all of these courses. And I learned about this discipline called instructional design. Excuse me. And while I was there, I learned this methodology, and I had two managers. I had a quality assurance manager and a direct manager who evaluated everything that I did. And they always said, "What can we do to make it better?" And add into that, they brought in a master's degree program. So we were able to take courses on our lunch hour. So it was the perfect storm of doing the work, getting feedback about the work, and learning about all best practices. And that really sent me on a trajectory. And from there, I worked in one corporate job after another, worked my way all the way up to being a training director, had a stint of being on my own for several years, and went back inside. Then now I'm back outside again. And all of that time that I spent in creating all of these courses over all of these years for just about any type of content you can imagine or any delivery method has really positioned me to have this very deep expertise that I think a lot of people in the course creation space have.
Well, it's always interesting to hear how things came about and how our prior jobs, often that we don't even realize are going to, be important into our future and what we're doing. So I love that you shared that. I think it was very interesting to hear how you didn't even necessarily know what you're doing, and now here you are, the expert.
So there you go. And you too can become an expert.
Exactly. So I would love for you to just share then, if someone has an idea of what that they would like to create, it might be a workshop, it might be a course. What is the beginning process from, creating that content to write it for their ideal audience?
Right. Well, the first step in the process is always to be really clear on who your target audience is. Now, a lot of people in the small business space, they've got two audiences, essentially. There's employees. What do we need to do to develop our employees to be able to perform at the level we want? And then there's what can we do to train our customers to make the onboarding experience better, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
to provide them with great content so that it becomes more of a lead generation strategy. Like, wow, you've got all this great content that you want to share with me. And when I'm ready to pull the lever on whatever the service is, I'm gonna work with you because you've been so generous with your knowledge. So it's really getting a sense on who they are and what do they need. And it gets down to, is there a particular problem that needs to be solved? So what, we always talk about in marketing, what are the pain points? So when you look at starting off on creating your course, you want to look to, what do you have in place from your marketing messaging? And is that, that can inform then what you want to do for your clients. And and additionally, if you don't have that very totally nailed down, by going through exercises of really learning about your target market, then that, if you do it from the training side, it will inform the marketing side as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, knowing your target is so important in anything, that we're
Yes,
doing in business. And, who do you think is going to be the person who's going to be the learner, who's going to want to have this? And it may not be your customers you're working with right now, right?
it could be the people you want to work with.
Mhm. What is the biggest challenge about getting started in writing courses?
I think the biggest challenge, people fall into two camps. One is, I have all of this content and I don't know
Mhm.
how to organize it. I don't know how to structure it. And they get overwhelmed by looking at this, reams of information. The other side of it is, somebody says, I've got this great idea, but
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure how to flesh it out. And there's kind of this spot in the middle. Then once, they kind of go, well, okay, I know I'm clear about what I want to talk about, but it always comes down to, how am I going to put it all together? And that can stall people. And now
Mhm.
what's just kind of on the horizon now is, of course, AI has entered into the picture. And
Right.
I've been working with a couple of clients who, one, she's doing a program about leadership. She works in a hospital lab. So the program is going to be targeted towards people that work in labs that want to be able to advance in their career.
Mhm.
So it's really well niched. But she has a lot of great thoughts and ideas around leadership. So what we did for some of her topics is, we went into Chat GPT and asked it some questions. And what it did is, it gave her a really good outline and
Mhm.
set of ideas around leadership. And then she just went through it and personalized it, made it, the content, sound like her, because sometimes ChatGPT
Right.
just sounds like the Terminator. But then, and then looked, well, where were the stories and examples? Who were the leaders that influenced her in her career? What were the different actions that she took that made a difference? What was her, sage advice to provide to her audience? So,
Mhm.
that's sort of like it's like having this new assistant that's capable but needs really specific instructions in order to give us what we need.
Right. Well, and I think that's helpful, maybe to use it as, like you said, creating an outline or maybe some ideas
Hmm.
of things, but really the content has to come from us as the creators so that it is
Exactly.
really authentic, right? And it's not,
Exactly.
you know, the same thing that everyone is going to create because they go to ChatGPT and say, oh, I want to talk about leadership. What should I say?
Right.
Or something
Right.
like that.
Well,
So,
it is an
right.
interesting case of some attorneys who went to ChatGPT and they pulled all this information for a case that they were going to be arguing, and a lot of the information wasn't true. So the
Hmm.
cautionary tale in all of this is, if you come at it from that angle, you have to have a degree of expertise in your subject matter so you can judge the information that comes out to say, is
Right.
that valid or not valid? And absolutely, you've got to put your creativity and your spin on it. The way I look at it is, you don't always have to start with a blank sheet of paper.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like it just primes the pump. So, okay, here's some ideas for you, and now you can run with it.
Exactly. Exactly. So once someone has their outline and their idea of what they want to create, like what would be the next step for them to move along the path of getting this created?
Okay. Well, you have your outline, which is the, what are you going to teach? Then you have to step back and
Hmm.
look at, well, okay, how am I going to teach this? And there's at the big picture view, is it going to be an in-person workshop? Because we can leave the house again, thank goodness. Is it going to
Mhm.
be on Zoom or Teams or a virtual platform where you're going to be able to engage with people? I call that live online. Or is it going to be an on-demand evergreen course where
Mhm.
people are going to take it completely independently and there's not interaction with an instructor? So
Mhm.
you want it because you have to think about each of those has opportunities and constraints. So you make that decision first, and then you look
Mhm.
at it and you say, okay, well, if I want to do something that's going to be done through, let's just say a Zoom platform, where could you use breakout rooms? Where can you use polling questions? When would you want to use the chat feature? So you think about this is what I want to say, and then these are the points that I'm going to want to engage people. And the
Mhm.
more you can do to create engagement and more of an experiential type of a program, the more successful it's going to be because they're going to stick with you. It's not going to be, okay, they're sharing their screen now. I can go look at my email, right? So
Right.
that kind of, you have to consider that. Now, what I'm seeing people do now is really more what I would say it's either hybrid or blended learning, where they look at how do I put together all of these different opportunities into one larger program. So there could be an evergreen component that people take of that is maybe it's content that you say over and over and over and over again. It's the basics. Then you could have Zoom calls to do more interactive experiences,
Mhm.
answering questions, run that through, and then perhaps have a workshop where you invite people to something in person later on. Because now we're not just stuck in one lane right now. We can take
Mhm.
advantage of all these different opportunities, which I think is great.
Right. Well, is there like a specific process then that you recommend for actually creating and publishing the content? I mean, I hear right now too, you're saying obviously figure out your target market, figuring out
Yes.
the platform, that you're going to be using. But once you know those things, again, like what is the actual like beginning to end kind of process that you would recommend?
So we go like idea to implementation. So the first
Hmm.
thing is we covered, you look at who your audience is, you decide then what the need is. Then you go through and you do an outline of what you want to teach. Then you look at how you want to teach it. Then that's really coming up with a program design. What's it going to look
Mm.
like from end to end? And then you move into actually creating all of the content. So, do you need to have a video script? Do you need to create handouts? Probably yes and yes.
Hmm.
What are the activities going to be like? Do you need to have any type of a quiz or an assessment? And you just start, you just work through each topic, and based on your outline, then you start to just build everything out. And it's great to have an outline or a framework because that keeps you focused. Yeah,
Hmm.
sometimes people will just sit down and they're all over the place. But if you kind of go, this is my outline, this is what I'm going to cover in this module, then you stick with that. And if new ideas, little shiny objects come in and want to, you know, raise their,
Right.
yeah, I'm here,
Right.
then you can decide, okay, this shiny object gets to stay, but this shiny object has to go. And then the other piece of it is making decisions around, there's a delivery platform, like we're on a delivery
Hmm.
platform now in this conversation. Then there's where do people go to sign up? And that's, another part of the technology is to choose if you're going to use a plugin for a WordPress site, for example, that like MemberPress, or are you going to use another platform like the big players now seem to be Kartra, Kajabi,
Hmm.
Thinkific, and Teachable, which they're designed for people to put courses there, and that exists outside of your website. So you have to think about where's it going to house, how are people going to find it, how are they going to pay you, and all of these options
Hmm.
have the payment gateways built in. But that's another part of the technology that's important, but it often stalls people because they just get
Right.
overwhelmed by what choice am I going to make. With my team, we look at everybody's situation differently and come up with the best solution. And it's always nice to have somebody do that kind of heavy lifting for you.
Right. Well, and that's what I was thinking as you were talking too. It's like okay, we could have a fabulous idea for content of what we want to share, right? But when it comes to all of the putting it together and making it available, that could be completely overwhelming and something that's maybe not even in our skill set, And
Yes.
so to me, what I'm thinking is you need to have a team really probably to help you put this together, at least one other person, because you're not going to
Mhm.
probably be able to easily do it all yourself.
And when I work with people, I'm kind of coming at it from the design and the
Hmm.
strategy. And then I've got people that I'll work with to help, somebody's got to shoot the video. Someone needs to edit the
Hmm.
video. And there's lots of ways that you can come at this, and you can take it to different levels. There's some
Hmm.
interesting tools that people can use. Technology is great as things become available to more and more people. It's like when the
Hmm.
handheld calculator, well, like everybody could use a calculator. That was a big deal. But now, but now you can record on Zoom. You can change out your backgrounds. You can use a tool like a Stream Deck, which allows you to switch between different types of shots. So whether you could play a video, you can be on camera, you can share a screen. So you can definitely move back and forth. So you have a chance of having a recording that is going to be more interesting. See,
Hmm.
one of the challenges that we have is everybody's grown up consuming entertainment on a screen, from a big screen
Hmm.
TV to a phone. And when we're consuming video type of content, it's constantly changing. If you count, it's like just a few seconds and the scene changes. So our brains are kind of conditioned to all of this action and movement. And then we get to training, it just becomes a talking head.
Hmm.
And people are like, wait, there's something
Right.
supposed to happen, just like this. So it is being really thoughtful about how can you put it all together. And then you've got to think what can you do within the budget that you have and the resources that you have. And
Hmm.
I've worked with people where they're going to go to a studio and they're going to film everything, and that, it's, a 3-day production, to how can we do it just within, what can I do on Zoom at home in my
Right.
office. And that's just about, background and lighting. So you can, and everybody's different. And
Hmm.
that's part of the fun of it, is to say, okay, given this situation, what can we do to get the best possible outcome within whatever the constraints that people have?
Hmm. And so as you're talking to, I'm thinking like, well, with a webinar, it's, happening, people are on the call at the same time, and you can like have a poll, ask a question, say, put something in the chat, right? So you can have someone more engaged. But if you're doing a video training that someone's going to purchase, right, and you are recording yourself teaching something, that's a little bit different. So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're saying, like, instead of just having you talking, that then you're popping in an image or video clip or something, and then you've got your voiceover that will
Hmm.
hopefully keep them
Yeah.
attuned to what's happening.
And there's tools that you can use where you can have things change throughout the recording. It takes a little while to get, savvy to be able to bring in a graphic across the bottom of the screen, or change
Hmm.
out backgrounds, because you got to be paying attention to pushing all these buttons while you're talking. And for some people that's
Right.
like walking and chewing gum, right?
Right.
So there's things that you can do, in the moment. There's the other side of it, is to just record something where you do everything on camera. You work with a teleprompter, and then you give that track of you doing video on camera and your whatever graphics you have to a video
Hmm.
editor, and then they put it all together for you. It's either you work on the front end or the back end, or
Right.
it can be, a combination of what can I do, how much can I do on my own. So I can go
Hmm.
back and forth between me talking and slides. But if I want other types of graphic elements, then perhaps I have a video editor put those in after the fact. Really
Right.
good idea, though, to talk with whoever's going to do your editing to find out, what's possible, so that you make
Hmm.
their job easy and you don't end up having to spend more money than you need to.
Right. And that's what I was thinking as you're talking again too, is Okay, I can see you want to have someone who can help you, unless you're really good at all of this too, doing the editing of the videos or creating images that you want to use, especially like if you're teaching on something that needs to have like a graph or something, you want probably want to have a professional help you with that. So,
Yes.
what do you recommend to someone who's listening who's like, okay, I don't know how to do all that. I need to find professionals. How can I find someone to help me? And how do I even know what's reasonable to pay?
Yeah, it's a challenge because it can be all over the place in terms of the quality that you're going to get and what you're going to pay.
Right.
So the first thing is everything comes down to me to best use of time. And you want to do
Hmm.
what you're really good at. If you have an interest in something, if it's something you want to learn, that's great. But you have to really think about, just because I can, should I? Right. So you want to think about what is it that you want to accomplish and what are the skills that you need. And I've had some success looking for people on Upwork. Many of the people that I've worked with, they've come to me through referrals. A lot of people will engage and they'll work with people that are offshore. And that becomes, there's a whole management skill if you make that choice because the rates are much lower.
Hmm.
However, your communication has to be very precise and very clear because you're oftentimes you're dealing with people where English is a second language. And I've had the experience with some people where it appears that their English is better than it really is. And you don't
Mm,
learn that until you really are in and communicating. But having said
right.
that, if you can tell them exactly what you want, then they can really deliver.
Mhm. And
And
I
I've
can
got people
assume
in
that
my
would
network that I,
mhm.
refer out all the time.
Well, and I love referrals. That's the whole thing. And for me, I like to connect people. And when someone reaches out to me, I
Yes.
just say, yes, I want to be a resource. And so that's great when we can have that. But if someone is working with someone who's offshore, I could think there could be a huge time difference. So I would think
Yes.
be more in writing than being able to have like a person face to face conversation. And so I can see where that could be a challenge,
Yeah,
right?
because sometimes,
Especially
you'll
if,
be working during the
mhm,
day and you'll put something our day is their night
mhm,
oftentimes. Or I know some people they've just started working with some folks in the Philippines. So and they want to talk like at 9, 10 o'clock at night, my time. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you
mhm,
or I don't want to talk to you at
mhm,
10 o'clock at night. I want you to work on my time frame.
right,
So
right.
it's just,
Mhm.
it's finding the right mix of people. And I like to try to work with people in the US as much as I can.
Mhm.
I
Me
just feel
too.
that that's just a value that I have. I want to be able to give people here work first.
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. Because then we're giving back to our community or
Yeah.
our state or, our country, however you look at it. Well, do you have like final tips, maybe something I didn't know to ask that you want to share with the listener to help them along this journey so they can create their content?
The final tip that I would have is to really be intentional about what you're doing. Really think through the problem that you want to solve and think about how can you deliver the right amount of content
Mhm.
in as little time as possible. So to really think about being as clear and crisp and sharp as you can be,
Mhm.
particularly if you're doing video, because that is the one of the best ways to hold people's attention.
Mhm. Well, while you were saying that too, one thought that I was wondering is if you're creating an online course again where someone's going to purchase and do it, the modules or the lessons, how much value is received in terms of, I guess the question is like, how short or how long should it really be so that they see that it's actually worth the price that they paid, right? So they're
Yeah.
getting the information and they're not thinking, well, that was very short and I thought I was going to have more content versus recording too much information.
It's always finding the right balance of information. And
Mhm,
if the course solves their problem, if they can solve it in an hour or if it needs to be 4 hours, they're going to be fine. And
mhm,
it's more about don't waste people's time
mhm,
because you'll lose them if it feels like it's just going on and on and on and on. You'll lose them. They'll
mhm,
stop, they'll go off, they'll do something else, and they won't return. So, and I think you also look at, is it something that's a transactional type of a course? Like maybe it's learning how to use a software application. There's a
Mhm.
different value on that as opposed to I'm working with somebody now, it's a full-on 6-month coaching program
Mm.
all around defining what their career purpose, their life purpose is. That's something that takes months for you
Mhm.
to really work through that, as opposed to, I want to learn how to do a better job in Excel. You should be able to,
Right.
right? That can be life changing for some, but so it kind of comes down to what's the value that they're going to get from taking the course. If I'm going to change
Mhm.
the trajectory of my life and have the career of my dreams, there's a different value on that than I can now do pivot tables in Excel,
Exactly. Okay, well,
which is
this
a
has been
great thing.
helpful. Right. I know there's probably so much more we could talk about on this topic, but I know we're coming to the end of today's time. So I would love to ask if you have an offer that you would like to share with our listeners.
Well, I would love it if people could download my 8 easy steps to create training that sells. It gives you framework for the process that I follow and the methodology, and that's a freebie. And you'll have the link, and you can pull it from my website.
Perfect. We'll include
And
that in the show notes.
and
And
before I
how
forget,
can
I
they
wrote a
connect
book.
with you? Oh, perfect. Yes. Talk about
This
that.
book is Bundle Your Brilliance, Turn Your Expertise into Profitable Online Courses. And you can find this on Amazon, both paperback and Kindle version. And if people want to connect with me, the best place is by my website. And my email address is nancy@nancygiere.com. And Giere is Giere. You can even call me, and that's 414-315-9809.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Nancy, so much for being a guest on my show and sharing your expertise on this topic. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And to the listener, thank you for tuning in. I hope you found this discussion interesting and that you enjoyed learning about course creation. And would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? I would really appreciate your support. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Nancy, or you can send us a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next interview. And remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. This episode is sponsored by Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services. If you are overwhelmed trying to handle the financial aspects of your business, give us a call. We are here to help. So our phone number is 310-534-5577, or you can email us at contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.